Hey, this is Ken Kraetzer with tonight's edition of the West Point Football Report, our Beat UConn edition, as Army will be traveling down to the Bronx to play at Yankee Stadium, the famed arena where they have played football games since the 1920s, to take on the University of Connecticut Huskies, and a game that's been anticipated by both schools as a chance to be showcased in Yankee Stadium, and it'll be the first football game of the year, several coming up. The Lehigh-Lafayette game will be there in 2 weeks, which is sold out for the 150th anniversary of that rivalry. And then, of course, the Pinstripe Bowl will be there right around the first of the year, and should be a good matchup. There have been really a growing number of successes with the Pinstripe Bowl at Yankee Stadium. And this is the third time Army's going to play in the new Yankee Stadium, which started with a game in 2010 against Notre Dame. A beautiful November evening, which turned out to be a win by the Irish. It was a home game for Notre Dame. They had over 50,000 people there, mostly Notre Dame fans that night, but a beautiful evening, and Notre Dame won. But I always remember Steve Anderson, the Army captain and linebacker, said in the second half, as a team, they just said that we're going to turn off the scoreboard and just play our game. And they limited Notre Dame to one touchdown in that game. With me tonight is Jack McGuirk, who is a member of our Sons of the American Legion radio staff, heard on WVOX every Monday at 2:30. And Jack, an interesting day. I know you've been to some of the football games at Yankee Stadium. It's quite a different experience where we see the famed layout with the football gridiron laid out on it.
Oh yeah, it's amazing the way that they're able to adjust the field and put the football field down, and they cover up all of the infield. So it's a pretty amazing transition. And tomorrow it's going to be a chilly one, so bundle up if you're going.
It will be a little bit of a cool day as the fall has really come into the New York area today. I think this afternoon it's dropped 20 degrees. So it's going to be a cool, crisp fall day, hopefully sunny, which it looks like it's going to be. And Army played at Yankee Stadium against Rutgers a couple of years ago, came out on the short side of a very competitive game. I always remember how much Angel Santiago did in that game. Trent Steelman was the Army starting quarterback and unable to play because of an injury. And Angel Santiago went in and played a very strong game for Army, and I always compliment him on that because he was a young player, got thrown into a situation, as they say, on the big stage, and did very well. But Army's looking for a win. They haven't won in the new version of Yankee Stadium. Of course, a rivalry and a setting across the street where they played Notre Dame in some famous football games going back to the Gipper game in the 1920s and the famous games during World War II and just after when Army played Notre Dame. In fact, I had an uncle who went to the 1945 game and just back from Europe, and I always talked to him about what a sense it must have been to be a returning U.S. Army officer in the fall of 1945 in the Bronx at Yankee Stadium, really one of the biggest stages in the country at the time. And so Army was returning in this relationship with the Yankees to play a series of at least 5 games. And the Yankees have been very supportive of West Point with a visit by the baseball team to West Point 2 years ago. A terrific day. Just before the season started, when the Yankees played at West Point, they set up 5,000 seats around the baseball field for the day, and the weather turned out to be as good as you could hope for in late March. And the West Point band is often down at Yankee Stadium for the big days to perform the national anthem. And our friend Mary Kay Messenger from the West Point band frequently is called upon. In fact, she'll be there tomorrow at Yankee Stadium to perform one of the anthems at the game. So it's going to be a lot of fun, and both teams really need a win. We're looking at two teams, Army coming off a loss to Air Force last week. That was very disappointing for them. They had high expectations to defeat the Air Force Academy. Came up way short, 23-6. Really struggled to get the offense going. all day. One of the smallest rushing performances we've seen by Army in really the era since they went to the full option offense about 5 years ago. They only had 120 yards of rushing. Larry Dixon only had 15 yards on the day when we thought he was going to have a breakout day. But Army's struggling. They're basically rebuilding the offensive line during the middle of the season. And as we talked to Coach Jeff Munkin about that on the press conference Tuesday, he may very well have his 9th combination of offensive linemen playing tomorrow, including a couple of freshmen who are capable players. But as you know, offensive line is a team within the team. It needs the cohesion of players who know each other and play together for a while, train for a while. Generally, you want to put an offensive line together in spring practice and then work them up through make any changes during the August practice and then go with the same players, with the exception being, of course, when you have injuries. But right now it looks like Matt Eugenberg will be the starting center as he's played every game for Army. It's really been the one constant. But he's still learning too. This is his first year of college football playing the center position, which really kind of leads the offensive line. And then we're looking at, on the left side, Ryan Alexander, who, when I talked to him a month ago, is a defensive end and was moved because of the shortages on the offensive line to left tackle. And he's not the biggest guy in the world. He's 6'1", 250, big by most standards, but left tackle is usually the biggest weight position on a football team. And but he's a very competitive player, and I'm sure we'll do well. We may see Drew Hennessy back there as well at left tackle. Left guard, Stephen Moreau and Steve Shoemaker. Steve Shoemaker's been battling a whole bunch of injuries during the course of the year. And it's interesting, Bryce Holland is the backup center, number 65, a freshman from Texas, 6'2", 265. A chance to chat with Bryce in August, and he said he really looked forward to going to West Point and having a chance to play football and train to become a U.S. Army officer. And on the right side, we may see a freshman, Jaron Villegas, who's had quite a bit of playing time. He got hurt up in the Yale game, and that slowed him, but he's back and number one on the depth chart for tomorrow at right guard. And right tackle is Mike Houghton, another freshman, 6'4", 257. Todd McDonald has been the starter, the senior, but again, he's been dealing with some injuries, and we'll see. So until they take the field tomorrow, we may not be sure who is playing on the offensive line. I think the consistency will be from the backs. Expect Angel Santiago to start, although there's a chance A.J. Sure might be given the nod. Angel Santiago is a dedicated player. He was struggling a little bit with his passing, not getting the ball off as quickly, I think, as you might like. And that's been something we've expected to see from A.J. Sure as a better passing approach. But the coaches say they're pretty similar. So we'll see. Larry Dixon starting fullback and Terry Baggett at halfback. But Terry's actually listed in both positions with Tony Giovanelli injured in the Air Force game, and no information yet on when he may be able to be back playing. So we'll have to see who is the third back. Could be Trenton Turrentine, who is known as a great blocking back. I'd love to see Trenton get a chance to play at Yankee Stadium. Another player from Texas, very, very dedicated senior on the team. And then, we'll see on the wide receivers Xavier Moss and Edgar Poe. The sophomore has done a great job when he's been given a chance. And Kelvin White, who made some big plays last week. Defense has been pretty steady for Army, especially the big three guys up front. Richard Glover at nose tackle, Mike Eugeni, Joe Drummond at the ends, and James Kelly and Stephen Riccardi at the outside linebacker positions have done well. But on the inside, Jeremy Timpf has really been the guy who's impressed everyone to come out of nowhere, leading West Point in tackles. And 3 weeks in a row, he's just had superlative games. He just knows how to get free and change direction. I was watching one play last week where he's moving to his left, the play moves right, and he just changes in an instant and makes the play. And like a wrestler, he's able to make a one-on-one tackle. So Jeremy Timp, number 39, is a guy to keep your eye on. I'll have to see the other linebacker position. If Andrew King is back ready to play, he got hurt early in the game against Air Force. Scott Washley, number 36, went in and played the balance of the game and received a lot of compliments from Coach Munkin in the press conference Tuesday about being a player who prepared for the day when he got the call, watching a lot of film, being ready, and Scott Washley did a nice job. So we'll see. I imagine they'll both get some playing time. Challenge on the defense is the loss of Jeff Bacon, who's been out since the Yale game when he had an ankle injury. It looked like he had changed to a soft cast when I saw him at the game last week, so I guess there's hope that he might be ready for to give it a shot for the Navy game. And what an inspiration he would be if Jeff Bacon get out on the field against Navy in a month down in Baltimore. The cornerbacks, Chris Carnegie and Josh Jenkins, have just done a tremendous job. Josh Jenkins had another interception against Air Force at 4 on the year, and he's a punt returner, very sure-handed player, and he and Chris Carnegie just keep making great stops on defense. It was obvious last week that Air Force wasn't throwing the ball to the outside; they were throwing the ball up the middle, where Army had some young players in the secondary. We got the senior Hayden Pierce, but then you got Luke Prue and Tevin Long and Ryan England. England, a freshman, 9 tackles last week, and is feeling his way very nicely. And again, some of the young players that Coach Munkin is bringing into the lineup as he starts, as he says, building his program here at West Point. Now, Jack, I know you followed the Navy game last week very closely, which went down to the wire. Really great comeback by the midshipmen, and they were in it until the last minute against Notre Dame. Why don't you tell us a little more about that game?
Yeah, they ended up losing the game 49-39 against Notre Dame. It was a big offense game. Navy actually scored 5 touchdowns and finished with a total of 454 yards of offense, 336 were rushing. Now, Notre Dame actually scored 4 touchdowns on their first 4 possessions, but then Navy came back, scoring 24 unanswered points, giving them a 31-28 lead. Now, Notre Dame, after they took a 42-31 lead with 12:22 left in the game, Navy actually scored on a 12-yard touchdown pass from Keenan Reynolds to Chris Swain, and then followed that up with a successful 2-point conversion, closing the score to 42-39. But ultimately, Notre Dame was able to come out on top. And if you look at the long history of the rivalry between these two schools, which is one of the longest in college football, Notre Dame has been pretty dominant with a 75-12-1 record. So Navy now has a 4-5 record, and the next game is going to be at home against Georgia Southern. So they're hoping to rebound after a tough loss against the Fighting Irish.
Okay, Georgia Southern, of course, is Coach Jeff Munkin's former school that he made into a prominent program. They actually went Division I, or Football Bowl Division, as I guess it's more properly called this year. So that will be an interesting game. And does Air Force have a game this week?
Yeah, Air Force, their next game is against the University of Las Vegas. University of Las Vegas, they're 2-7, so not a great year for them. But if you look at the history of these two schools, the last 2 times they met, it was wins for Las Vegas. So we'll see if, after winning the Commander-in-Chief Trophy, if Air Force is going to keep up the momentum.
Yeah, certainly. Congratulations to Air Force on winning the Commander-in-Chief Trophy, something that is very coveted amongst the 3 service academies. Army dearly wanted to win it for the senior class, and came up short. They wanted very much to beat Air Force so that the Army-Navy game would be for the trophy. And instead it'll be on its way to Air Force, and the Air Force seniors will get the visit to the White House that goes along with the Commander-in-Chief Trophy. Now going back to a little bit more about the Army-Connecticut game, looking at the numbers a little bit, Army is actually outscoring Connecticut. Connecticut's really struggled on offense so far this year. 23 points a game, 16 for Connecticut. And when you look at their rushing per game, you start to see it. Army's averaging 294 yards, which is really down a little bit for them. They had obviously not much of a rushing game last week against Air Force. And but UConn's just running for less than 190 yards a game. So they are a passing team, primarily UConn passing for 191 yards per game, Army just 73. And one of the things we were thinking before the game last week is that Army really needs to throw for about 100 yards to complement the running game. The games that they have done well, they've been able to complete some of the short passes, some of the rollout passes, and get it to about 100 yards, just so that the linebackers have to stay back, and so does the secondary, and not everybody's thinking run on every play. You need to show pass just so that you keep the defense honest and give your running game a chance to move. And as I said, UConn has completed 130 of 236 passes. Army just 41 of 85, but a pretty good percent. Pass defense, Army's been giving up a lot of yards, 253 yards per game, and UConn very similar, about 244. So that may be something that Army certainly wants to exploit. Challenges UConn's had with their pass defense. Again, it might be a nod to A.J. Scher, who really doesn't have a problem in throwing the ball downfield. So we'll see who goes out tomorrow. Coach Monken has generally been answered the question about who's going to start a quarterback with the thought that he's going to wait and see who's playing better in practice. There may also be some injuries. I mean, Angel Santiago took a lot of hits in the Air Force game, and it could be a factor. One of the things with the Army that they've been struggling with is a third down conversion, just 37%, 38 of 104. Actually, Connecticut's been worse, 34 of 112, 30%. Fourth down, Army's made it 45% of the time, and UConn 34. Army's had 7 sacks, and UConn has had 11. Just looking at the picture on a national scale, Army is 5th in the country in rushing at the 294 yards, and UConn is 118th out of about 125 schools. So they've really struggled rushing the ball, which is a bit surprising. Their total offense, 282, is 122nd in Division I. Army is at 94 with 367 yards. So hopefully Army can go back to its strength, which is ball control, long drives with mostly rushes. Army's been averaging 5.4 yards per carry. UConn just 2.7, which is you don't survive on 2.7 yards a carry. Yeah. You're not going to win very many games that way. So they're rebuilding. They've got a new coaching staff led by Bob Diaco, who is from Notre Dame. Was an assistant coach on many of the very good Notre Dame teams the last couple of years. And so he's trying to build a program just like Jeff Monken is. And both teams would dearly like to win this game at Yankee Stadium on Saturday. Jack, I think you have a few more things for us?
Nope. It should be a good game tomorrow. And looking at some of the information on the players there, I noticed that UConn has some 300-pound guys on their offensive and defensive line. So that's something that Army's going to have to deal with in the game.
Yeah, it's a good point. Air Force actually was, as some of the people used to say, a fair fight game in terms of players that were similar to Army on the offensive line and defensive line. UConn is a team that is composed primarily on their offensive line of 300-pound players. So when we see them go out on the field, they're going to be a big offensive line. They've got a big defensive line just as well. And just going over that in specifically, their starting center, Alex Matisse, number 73, 6'4", 309. Probably the biggest of the bunch. The left tackle, Richard Levy, is 6'6", 305. And Gus Cruzo, left guard, 6'4", 296. So this is an NFL-size offensive line. It's really surprising with players that big that they can't run the ball.
Yeah. You'd think that that would give them an advantage, but it may help against Army. They don't really have too many big guys like that on their line.
On the defensive side of the ball, they're big too. They have a defensive tackle, B.J. McBride, number 97, 6'5", 304, and complemented by nose guard Julian Capani, 6 foot, 299. So those are the kind of players that tend to wear down opponents. But we'll see. The UConn quarterback is Chandler Whitmer, a senior, 6 foot, 192. And their fullback is Jasmar Clax, 241 pounder. That's kind of Larry Dixon size. So we will see what they will bring to Yankee Stadium. This is just one of those games that everybody wants to win and play well on the big stage of Yankee Stadium. Just looking at Connecticut's season so far, they started with a loss at home to BYU. They had some tough non-conference games early in the year, losing 35-10, and then they also lost at home to Boise State, 38-21. They lost at South Florida in a close game, 17-14, and they got run over by Temple. And Army's been run over by Temple a few times.
Yeah.
Very good running team. 36-10, they lost to Temple, and they lost down at Tulane, 12-3, and then 31-21 to East Carolina, number 18 in the country. But a big win at home last week, perhaps a turnaround win, 37-29 over Central Florida, a very good team from the America Conference. So we will see a UConn team that I got to think they got to be thinking about how to run the ball and trying to improve on their running game against Army. But keys for Army is ball control on offense, is reestablish a running game like they have done so often in the past. Try to get the offensive line to be working as a unit and to just execute their run blocking that they've done so well for the series of these 5 years that they've been running the optional offense, and try to get the ball to Terry Baggett and Ray Maples for outside speed, using the speed, especially Terry Baggett this year. Ray Maples has really been struggling with injuries. We'll see if he's at full speed. He's actually been doing some pass catching this year, some rollouts from Angel Santiago. But Army needs to find a way to get Terry Baggett into the game because he is a big play back. He has tremendous speed to the outside. You give him a block, he can go the length of the field very easily. And so we'll see. And then if they do try to throw the ball, and if we have Angel Santiago or A.J. Shure quarterback, so we'll have to see. Sometimes you're not sure until they go out on the field. Who's going to play in these games, especially in this year for Jeff Monken, which is kind of a very fluid first year, when he and his staff are really looking at every combination of players that gives them a chance to win. And as he said, he's trying the players that are showing improvement, that are working hard in practice, and trying to get them into the games. And so it is very much Army is in the Jeff Monken era is a work in progress. So we are going to be looking forward to being down at Yankee Stadium tomorrow, 3:30 start for Army and UConn. We've talked to officials of the Yankees, Mark Holtzman, their director of non-baseball events, how much he was looking forward to this game. It sort of sets the pace. The Steinbrenner family have really supported college football in the new ballpark. And it's really building on the legacy of the boss, George Steinbrenner, who loved college football. He was a football coach at the college level, I believe at Purdue, and dreamed of having more big-time college football at Yankee Stadium and in his new ballpark. So for the West Point Football Report, I want to thank Jack McGuirk for coming down
Thank you.
and helping me with this. And we are a program at Sons of the American Legion Radio, part of Squadron 135 in White Plains, New York, part of the detachment of New York, Sons of the American Legion, all part of the American Legion family. And we want to wish all the veterans out there a great Veterans Day and say thank you for your service to our country. And I know there'll be some special events at Yankee Stadium. The Yankees actually have a project with the USO that they're going to pack another 5,000 gift bags for deployed soldiers and military members on Veterans Day. And that's something we've participated in a couple of times. And Joe Girardi, the manager of the Yankees, usually comes down. David Cohen, too, to help out. So that's a special event coming up that the Yankees and the USO do a great job teaming up with. So again, for Jack McGuirk, this is Ken Kraetzer for the West Point Football Report by Sons of the American Legion Radio. And our words for the day are, beat UConn.